This is Dave Kerpen, the CEO of Likable Local, and you're listening to the Dealer Playbook.
You're dialed in to the Dealer Playbook podcast, where it's all about winning auto dealer strategies that deliver proven results. And now your hosts, Robert Weissman and Michael Cirillo.
Hey there, what's going on? Michael Cirillo here from the Dealer Playbook podcast. I'm joined by my man, Robert Weissman. What's going on?
Yo.
Episode 57, dude.
Of the Dealer Playbook podcast.
Of the Dealer Playbook podcast. We're sitting down with a New York Times best-selling author. He's written like 85 books. No, I'm kidding. He's written 3 books, working on his 4th. We're going to be talking to him today about a book that he wrote called Likeable Social Media. We'll be hooking you guys up in the show notes. He's got just a whole wealth of information about how you guys can take social media to the next level and just build relationships. You know, we talk a lot about this on the show about BRT, build relationships of trust, and you're going to hear our guest today talk about that. We're sitting down with Dave Kerpen. He's the CEO and founder of Likeable Local. And I think he said he had a software product called Likeable Hub, yep, which we'll also just link to in the show notes. Robert, you've read this guy's book. And
yeah, I read it a few years ago. Now there's an updated version.
There's an updated
out there.
version, yeah.
Yep,
So,
which is the one we're talking about. But the guy's sharp, man, and he said that he moved into like more of the software. But I know he has some agency experience. I know he had a company that used to work with a lot of brands and businesses, social media, and his book's very, very good. I definitely recommend you picking that up. But this is a good session.
I mean, and the thing I like about him is he has experience working with dealerships. So the information you guys are going to hear Dave talk about today is relatable directly to the efforts that you are trying to make on social media. So without further ado, let's jump into this session with Dave Kerpen. Here we go. All right, Dave, how you doing today?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. And you know what? We're super pumped to have you on the show today. You've written a book called Likeable Social Media, and there's a revised and expanded edition available we'll link to in the show notes. But I wanted to read off this subtitle because I think it's so... It's so descriptive of what the reader will learn, and I want to just tie it into a question I want to ask you for those of our listeners who are ready to just kind of bite out of this. So, subtitle is How to Delight Your Customers, Create an Irresistible Brand, and Be Amazing on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, and more. So, the question I have for you is, you know, you read books like Jab, 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 Right Hook, who say, okay, look, each social network or social channel has kind of its own language, and there's things that work on Facebook that maybe don't necessarily translate that well to Twitter or LinkedIn. Yet in the auto industry, we know that social is such an important part of the consumer's path to purchase and connecting with people and building relationships. How does, you know, for those listening in, how do they dig in? Where do they start? Is your subtitle an indication of the chronology of what they should be doing? In other words, delighting customers, then focus on brand building, and then focus on being amazing in each individual network? Is it one at a time? Where does somebody get started doing these things so that they can, I guess, essentially see ROI out of social media?
Sure. Well, I think the first place to start is, chapter 1 of my book talks about the most underrated part of social media, which is listening. And so really the first place that I always urge businesses and like car dealers to start is by listening, is by using social media to pay attention to what your customers are saying now about you, about your competitors, about your product, et cetera. And then eventually join the conversation and start engaging with them. And to your point earlier, delighting them, surprising them, adding value for them, so that you can turn your customers into true word of mouth ambassadors. Really, all social media is. I find there's a lot of folks that are still relatively new to social media and certainly relatively overwhelmed by social media. But when you think about social media simply as word of mouth on steroids, we all know that any business grows from word of mouth. That's the most important aspect of any real business is marketing, and certainly for auto dealers, it's the same. And I've had some great experiences with auto dealers and some not so great experiences. And so if you're an auto dealer that's thinking about how to embrace social media, definitely start by listening, and eventually think about how you can take your customers, your happy customers, and turn them into true word of mouth ambassadors for you.
Okay, so what, the thing that immediately comes to my mind is, how long does that take? Is this a drawn out process? Like, I feel like for me, I don't spend all day sitting behind the computer, and I mean, people selling cars or dealers really don't have the time to do that. How do they bite into this and still be able to make kind of have a positive impact on what they're trying to do?
Yeah, well, let me say a word about time first, because people don't have time for things that they don't see value in. So a lot of people don't have time for social media. That's because they don't see the value in it. But I'll tell you, if you're an auto dealer and I can show you how with a few minutes a day you can sell an additional 3 cars a month, I think you might find time. Right. I mean, I think that we find time, we make time for the activities that we see in our lives have value. And I make an awful lot of time for social media myself, because it's driven millions of dollars worth of business my way, and I value it. In terms of how much time it takes, on the one hand, it's just like I said earlier, maybe a few minutes a day. On the other hand, it can take months to drive a prospect and turn that person into a customer on social media. The sales cycle is certainly a little longer on social media than offline, but it's very powerful nonetheless. And when I think about a traditional auto dealer that converts a customer, right? You work really hard to get this customer. Well, the moment that you have this customer, that customer goes into becomes a potential source of many prospects. And connecting with your customer on social media and getting your customer to like you and follow you and subscribe to your updates and all that fun stuff allows you to then start to leverage their network, your new customers' network. And that's really where the magic of social media can take over.
I love this, because I think, I agree with what you're saying. What I see and what I observe most often is, I think, for the most part, I think people are pretty decent at connecting with potential customers, but the temptation to sell quickly overtakes them, and they're not really.
The conversation isn't right.
Yeah, the conversation.
It's not a conversation.
Yeah, it's just a sales pitch. Yeah. Where does I mean? How do you delight a customer? Are you offsetting your comments with your own personal blog? Like, are you driving them to information that you think would be helpful? Like, how do you really connect with them in a way that they will see delight or enjoy the conversation that you're engaging with them?
Yeah, so my friend Laura Fitton, who works for HubSpot now, she's an author, and she has a line that I've adopted a lot, which I like, which is essentially that she can define your social media strategy with 2 words: be useful. When I think about how to engage people, whether it's one-to-one or one-to-many via social media, I think about how you can be useful, how you can be helpful, how you can be friendly, how you can be amazing, how you can be delightful, not how you can sell them. And so car dealers and other, dare I say, kind of classically trained salespeople and sales-focused individuals have to completely shift their thinking. And instead of, always be closing, it's really always be curious. Instead of, sort of focused on how I can sell someone, it's focused on how I can help someone. And when you do that, which is, by the way, a good sales methodology anyway, but it's really important for social media. And when you do that, you really can attract customers. I got a phone call. I tell a story in my book about how I'm really keen on giving away valuable content and valuable information. In fact, if you go to likableresources.com, you'll find 29 free ebooks, webinars, guides to various social networks, etc. And for years, and through both of my companies, Likable Media for big brands and Likable Local for small businesses, we've given away massive amounts of content online. So much content that not one but two people have actually walked up to me at conferences and said, Dave, I want to thank you for all of your free content. It's been so valuable that actually I started my own social media company thanks to everything I learned from you.
Wow.
Wait a minute. I'm not only helping competitors, I'm inspiring new competitors. But for those two people, we've also gotten literally, millions and millions of dollars of revenue from folks that have called us up or emailed us or tweeted us and already knew, liked, and trusted us and wanted to do business with us already. I got a phone call from somebody who said, Dave, we're a pretty large company, so I have to technically do an RFP, a request for a proposal here. But I wanted to let you know I've been following you guys on social media for the last year, read all of your updates, all of your blog posts, everything that you write on Facebook and Twitter. And I have a $500,000 budget, and it's yours. So, I got that $500,000 on the one hand from doing no selling at all, but on the other hand from consistently providing the market with really valuable content and positioning myself and my company as the go-to resource.
Yeah. Okay, so and everything I have to agree with here, because that's exactly, some of the stuff that we focus on is just over-deliver value and just always focus on that. Here's a question. I want to move on to this because I feel like I've never received a clear answer on this question. It comes up all the time. And referencing back to your book title, Be Amazing on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest. There's so many social networks out there. I'm asking kind of for myself here. Do I, Michael Cirillo, need to be active and super consistent on every single one of those?
I think it's
on every single
your
social
customer
network.
is.
Every single network. So Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, and who the freak knows how many there are.
Yeah, I'm on 13 myself. It's a good question. So the answer is probably no, you don't. I mean, I think it would be too hard to be on all of them for most car dealers. I think that you start with one and then work your way up and really think about where your customers are. So the big three are still the big three: Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. It might make sense if you have a particularly young audience to be, sort of more active on Instagram or Snapchat. It might make sense if you have a particularly female audience to be more active on Pinterest. It might make sense if you have a particularly older audience to be more active on
MySpace,
on a LinkedIn or something. But ultimately, I mean, I think the big three are Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And if you're a car dealer themselves, for sure, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. If you're a salesperson, I might start with LinkedIn and Twitter.
Okay, so you just said something that just kind of, I think it's an aha moment for me. Especially speaking of, you said depending on your audience, and I'm huge on audiences. So when you said, moms and women think about Pinterest, so maybe is there a way then that you can use the social networks for their intended audiences. In other words, I mean, I feel like, and we see this all the time, somebody will post something to Facebook, they'll post the exact same thing to Instagram, the exact same thing to Pinterest, the exact same thing to Twitter. It's the exact same message, but maybe does it need to be more on a campaign basis? So, for example, from a car dealer's perspective, they're saying, hey, look, we want to push out our inventory of minivans. We've got overstock. We know typically people who purchase minivans are young families, mothers who are concerned about safety, seating, configuration, entertainment options. Maybe we should go heavy on Pinterest because we know that's where the majority of them are going to be hanging out. Or do you still want to spread out that message across Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Pinterest?
Yeah, I mean, you probably want to spread it out. You have to think about what you can manage, and our tools, the Likeable Hub, allow you to manage multiple social networks really easily. But like, if you're doing it on your own, if you can't manage it all, don't try, right? So maybe you just want to focus on one social network for that campaign. But the chances are, I mean, because these networks are all so popular, the chances are that you can manage a Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. If you can keep up with it, then your audience is probably on all four, is my only point. But if you can't keep up with it, if you can only keep up with, say, one social network, choose the one that is most consistent with your audience that you really want to reach.
Okay, fair enough. And that makes total sense. Moving on to the next question I have for you here, because your book is all about using social as kind of like you referenced earlier, word of mouth marketing on steroids. Okay, so you're engaged in conversation, you've got campaigns, you're focusing on you're focusing on specific audiences, you're engaging in conversations with them. Are we talking about word of mouth as in you're the one sharing your word of mouth, or are we talking about getting to a point where people are actually talking about you of their own free will and testament? And is it a consistency thing that makes that happen? Is it just focus on value and just kind of post or engage in conversation whenever? Is there a formula to making or getting or compelling people? I'm using the wrong words. Is there a formula to encouraging people to talk about you or make you the topic of conversation on social media? Yeah,
good question. So first of all, it's both. To answer your question earlier, sort of word of mouth is, of course, word of mouth that you can generate, but it's even better if you can generate it from your customers. And it really starts with your business itself. Even before you get into marketing, and actually that's why I wrote my second book. It was called Likable Business, and it's about building a likable business and building a business that's worthy of word of mouth, rather than like just marketing about that word of mouth, rather marketing about that business. So the most important thing is, look, car dealers have a pretty bad reputation in general, the industry, right? It's not thought of as the most car salespeople are not thought of generally as the most likable, laid back, easy to get along with people on the planet.
No. Of course.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm just putting it out there. I'm willing to put it out there. But what I'm going to say is this: differentiate yourself first by being likable. Differentiate yourself first by being the kind of dealership or the kind of salesperson that is worthy of people saying, dude, talk to this guy. He'll take care of you. He's not just interested in selling you the most expensive car on the lot. He's truly interested in your happiness. Like, if you can really get that reputation by earning that reputation, well, then that's the very best word of mouth generator possible, right?
Okay.
The number one hack is being likable in the first place. Now, beyond that, okay, of course, how do you get word of mouth? Well, I would start by incentivizing it, right? we all of our referral programs that we run through our software have enter to win. So everyone who shares a referral enters to win a $500 gift card or an iPad or $1,000 cash or different prizes. I mean, the bottom line is, people don't like to go out of their way to promote other people. It's not, even if I really like you, it's not, I'm super busy, so it's very hard for me to go out of my way to like promote you, tell your story, give you the positive word of mouth that you so want. So make it easy for me, make it simple for me, and incentivize me to do it. And all those things are going to increase the likelihood of getting that word of mouth that we all want.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question to this, because I feel like, be likable. I feel like I'm a pretty likable person, except I'm pretty sure there's at least one person on the planet that if they saw me walking down the hall in real life, they'd probably like duck into a garbage chute or something like that. And Robert and I know people like that, where I've tried to like jump into the bushes, when I see them. I think people think they're likable. What are the traits? What are the character traits of someone that's likable? Like, I guess what I'm getting at is, hey, Robert, be likable. What does that look like? How does Robert become likable?
Well, listen, you thought you'd have me on and talk about my first book, and you're setting me up for all about the second book. Then, I write about 11 core features of a likable business and a likable business person in likable business. And so I won't list out all 11, but I'll share some of the ones that I believe are the most important of the 11. So the first starts with listening, somebody that is truly a really good listener, and somebody that listens, that's waiting to talk, but that's actually listening to understand. And I close with gratitude, somebody that truly expresses gratefulness and gratitude on a regular basis. I handwrite 3 thank you cards every morning. It's a really important part of my routine. As busy as I am and as social and digital as I am, I handwrite 3 thank you cards, and that really and I send them to my customers, my prospects, my staff, vendors, media, etc. And that really adds to my life and hopefully my likability. And then a few more that I've got are storytelling. It's so much better to tell stories than to like just share data. Like people respond to storytellers. Storytellers are the most popular people at any party, and often the best salespeople as well. Authenticity and transparency, and those last two are particularly challenging for people. But if you can embrace your own authenticity, Oprah Winfrey has a quote. If I'd realized that being my authentic self would have made me this rich, I would have done it a lot earlier. Authenticity, people are really drawn to authenticity and vulnerability and transparency, and just sort of telling it like it is. Those are all really important traits of being likable.
Very good, man. I like that. Definitely.
So basically we got to link up to this follow-up book. We got to link up to your second book in the show notes, which we'll do as well, because now I want to know what all of the other other attributes are.
Yeah. Hey, real cool. Let me go back on something you said a little bit ago, Dave, that kind of surprised me. Did I hear you say that as far as for salespeople, your top 2 would be platforms would be Twitter and LinkedIn?
Yeah, Twitter and LinkedIn, because Twitter and LinkedIn allow the most individual one-on-one connectivity, and as salespeople, one-on-one is really kind of more appropriate than one-to-many. So for the auto dealer themselves, Facebook is awesome, but I don't want to connect to a salesperson on Facebook. Like, Facebook is for my friends and family, whereas I'm totally willing to follow you if you have good content to share on LinkedIn or Twitter, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah. Fair enough.
Actually, this concept of social selling is kind of exploding in the last, couple of years, but social selling it's just social media for salespeople. And I see more and more salespeople starting to leverage Twitter and LinkedIn and doing a very nice job of building their own personal brand on these networks and gaining audience and getting sales. The thing that's so cool about car dealers and car salespeople is, your sales, and it's a big ticket item, right? So you every one sale you make, you get paid on. So if you can start to generate a pipeline on social networks, it's delivering you 1, 2, 3, solid leads a week, and you start to convert those leads into opportunities and sales, man.
Oh, yeah. It'll be worth it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and you know what I love about this conversation? I feel like this is exactly how things have happened for our agency, Robert and mine. Most of the connections. Actually, I think in the last 3 years, the connections that I've been able to monetize have come through connecting with people on social media. So, the more you're talking, the more you're answering our questions, the more I'm seeing how this really kind of comes together, because it isn't overnight, but it's so rewarding because it creates these lasting relationships that you build with people who, view you in a certain light. You build your brand, you get some more information out there, you continue to, communicate with people. And then eventually one day someone comes through the pipe that says, oh, hey, we'd love for you to do this. Or
like he said, the guy that dropped half a $500,000 budget.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly how it's happened to us. So I guess maybe there's a case study for what you're talking about here. And that's the way it's going to happen for those of you listening in. You get in there, resist that urge to sell, and just be a good contributor to a conversation.
Be likable.
You know what? I feel like there's so many more questions we could ask you, but I think this is enough information for now. So I'm gonna close down the conversation. But thank you so much for being on the show with us today, because this is something that I see so crucial to. This is the way things are done these days. Things happen through social media. So again, Dave, thanks so much for being on the show with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Before we sign off, how can those that are interested in getting more information, and we'll link up to your books in the show notes, but how can people get in touch with you? What's the preferred method of contact?
Sure. So one of my core values, actually, one of the other 11 that's in my little guide to being likable is responsiveness. So I get over 1,000 questions a week via social media, and I respond to each and every one. So if anyone has any questions for me, you can hit me up on Twitter at Dave Kerpen, Kerpen. And if you are looking for perhaps a faster response, or you're not on Twitter quite yet, you can search Likable. So we're really all things likable. We've got 3 books on Amazon with Likable in the name, and any big brands out there can talk to Likable Media, and any smaller businesses or salespeople should check out Likable Hub, our brand new, totally free product to help you manage your social media.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks for being on the show with us, Dave.
Yeah,
thanks so much, Dave, for having me. Have a super likable day.
Awesome, brother. And there you have it. That was NYT, New York Times best-selling author, Dave Kerpen. Cirillo, what'd you think, man?
Well, he knows what he's talking about, right? I think he's very. You can sense the passion that he has about this, and that it's worked. And that aha moment that I kind of had halfway through the show, where I was like, "Oh yeah, you know what? Everything he's talking about is exactly how it's happened for me." And I think what relationships we talk about this all the time. It's like, what relationships haven't I built in the last 3 to 5 years that didn't start on social media?
Absolutely. And it's like we've mentioned this before. It's even though, we so much segment the automobile industry into like it's so much different than anything else, but it's still that build relationships is the same. You know what I mean? Building a relationship is the same no matter what you're doing. And that's where it all starts. And Dave went deep into that. And, he goes so much, further into it in the book. Sometimes we wish these things could be longer, but, we're not trying to keep you there all day. Yeah,
this isn't a university course. It's just to get you guys plugged in. But such incredible information. And it tied in, for me, it ties in so perfectly, so well with our last guest, Jordan Harbinger from Art of Charm, because he talked about kind of the real world offline networking and connecting and building relationships with people. And he did reference, I think, at one point how, a lot of this stuff can start online, and now we're picking up that conversation with Dave, and he's talking all about how you can get that conversation started on social media so that you can network and build those relationships. I mean, dude, you and I met on social media. A lot of the people that we call friends now, we all met first on social media, built relationships with,
Yep.
it translated offline. So the whole thing about being likable, I think, is really, really important. And I want to get my hands on that book. We're going to be linking to in the show notes over at thedealerplaybook.com/57. So be sure to check that out. Guys, thank you so much for listening in. We appreciate your support, your feedback, your reviews. We love you guys for checking out my new book, Don't Wait, Dominate, which is an Amazon bestseller. Insert applaud here. Yeah, exactly. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely go check it out. We'll link to it in the show notes, www.thedealerplaybook.com/57. If you've got nothing else, Robert, I'm ready to
go,
roll
man.
out of here.
Yep.
Talk to you guys next week. Bye.